In the Gun, episode 114. I'm Callihan. That's Jed Drenning, the signal caller. And we've got a guest with us today. It is Casey Lundquist, who covers the BYU Cougars for FanNation on SI. And we weren't expecting to do this. This kind of all came together last second. That's why it's a no huddle episode, because BYU decided at the last second that they're going to make a quarterback change. And that was due to Kedon Slovis dealing with some injury issues. So sorry, Mountaineer fans, you won't be able to sing those words that you want to sing back to Kedon, maybe that he sung a year ago in Pitt at the pep rally. But nonetheless, bigger picture here. This is a late curveball for West Virginia defensive coordinator Jordan Less, who's got to prepare for a whole new quarterback now. So to get the latest on this quarterback move and to get an idea of what Jake Retzlaff brings to the table, we're going to go ahead and ask Casey his thoughts on this and what it means for the Cougars. So Casey, thank you for joining us. And go ahead and plug your stuff if you want to while you're at it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here. Yeah, like Schuyler, you can find my stuff on the SI domain for the BYU FanNation page, si.com/college/BYU. So we cover everything we can about BYU, and it's an exciting time of year.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Let's start with this, Casey. As this pivot took place last night, the information started leaking out. I thought, oh boy, here we go. So all I was left to do with a kid who hasn't played a snap this year for BYU yet, because they were hoping to redshirt him. Well, now here we are with 4 games left. I was left to look back to his junior college tape. And so I watched it as extensively as I could last night. And obviously he's impressive. And his skill set is much different from Kedon Slovis. Slovis is statuesque. This kid is not. I wouldn't necessarily call him a runner, but he can certainly hurt you running the football. One thing that was apparent to me in watching his tape, I thought this kid has to play baseball. He was delivering all these off-platform throws, throwing from all angles, throwing off his back foot. So walk us through what we can expect, the backstory, how he landed in Provo. Tell us about Jake.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. Jake kind of had a unique path to BYU. When he was being recruited out of Riverside Community College, he was a lesser-known product. I think especially as a JUCO player, those guys are often overlooked now with the transfer portal. So BYU kept his recruitment completely quiet. There were rumors of his visits to BYU, but really few people knew about him until BYU announced his signing. He received a few smaller offers from smaller schools, but he actually grew up in California, not associated with BYU by way of the church or anything, but he grew up watching BYU quarterbacks, the BYU quarterbacks of old that you might remember. But most recently, like the John Becks and Max Hall, those guys that had a lot of success at BYU, and he kind of knew of the aura of BYU quarterbacks in BYU football history. So when he got an opportunity to talk to BYU, he recognized the why, and he shut down his recruitment. He committed quietly to BYU while they worked out his transcripts, and he even gave them the green light to continue looking in the transfer portal. So meanwhile, BYU signed Kedon Slovis as kind of a 1-year veteran quarterback, so that Jake could come in and learn the system. And you are right. He is very different from Kedon Slovis. He does prefer to pass the football, but he is more mobile. And frankly, he kind of fits the mold that BYU has looked for at quarterbacks under Aaron Roderick. If you look at the last 2 years, it's been a weird year for BYU in that the defense has actually been more productive than the offense. The reverse has been true over the last 4 or 5 years. BYU has had one of the most efficient offensive attacks under Aaron Roderick. But the quarterbacks were Zach Wilson, who will start for the Jets on Monday night, and Jaren Hall, who will start for the Vikings on Sunday. So BYU has kind of been spoiled with some high-level quarterback play. But the similarities between those two and Jake is that they're not afraid to throw off platform, to play off script, and to use their legs, not necessarily to gain yards, but to buy time. And I think for a BYU offensive line that's had a few struggles, especially over the last few weeks to protect the quarterback, he might be exactly what the doctor ordered for a BYU offense that's frankly been stagnant. Uh, the offensive metrics are not kind to BYU. Now they've been winning games by being ultra efficient in the red zone, but they weren't efficient in the red zone against Texas, and you saw what happened. They only put up 6 points, and it wasn't pretty. So, Jake, as you mentioned, Jake's a baseball player. He played shortstop. He was a senior during the 2020 COVID year, and he prepped in California. So he did not have a chance to play high school football as a senior. He still had a chance to go play junior college, so he kind of bet on himself. And he was ultra productive at the JUCO ranks over 2 years, over at 2 different schools. I have the stats up here, but he in his last season he threw for 4,600 yards, 44 touchdowns, and he ran for a couple more touchdowns on top of that. In total, in 2 years, he racked up 7,900 yards, 82 touchdowns, and he didn't lose many football games. So he was ultra productive. But again, he's still an unknown for this game. He's going to face a defense with a lot more speed. It's a lot more physical, and we'll see how he reacts. But certainly, there's a lot to like about his film, and we'll see if it can translate from the JUCO level to Power 5 football.
We got to ask the Kedon Slovis injuries. What have they been? He says he's been dealing with it for weeks. What were those injuries? What are those injuries?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the offensive line has struggled a little bit, and Kedon can't really escape much of a pass rush. So he has been dealing with what I believe was a shoulder injury dating back to the Arkansas game. And it was interesting when Jake won the backup quarterback job. BYU said during fall camp outright, Jake is the backup quarterback, but we want to preserve his red shirt. BYU sees Jake Retzlaff as a potential starting quarterback over the next few years. And he's now officially preserved his red shirt. He can play the rest of the way. And Kedon, on the very last play against Texas, he got hit pretty hard. It was a strip sack, a turnover in the last few minutes of the game. And while I can't confirm that for sure, you'd probably have to ask Kedon, but I believe it was on that play. And he's been hurt ever since. And as far as I'm aware, he was not able to practice this week. So he might dress tomorrow and be ready in ultra emergency situation where you're to your second or third string quarterback. But it appears that the injury this week is just too much to overcome after that late hit against Texas.
Anytime you have a quarterback that's maybe not lighting it up as Kedon was, having his own fair share of struggles, you kind of wonder if it's how much of it's injury, how much of it's wanting to look forward to another guy and just see if there's something there. West Virginia a lot of fans in West Virginia thought that last year with JT Daniels, that they thought, oh no, is he just going through something because he's not what he once was at the beginning of the season, and that he just ended up turning to Garrett Green, and it paid off for them in big dividends. But that could be the case here for BYU. Maybe they just need a quarterback change. And to me, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it just felt like Kedon was a square peg in a round hole in that offense. He's not what they've traditionally had at that position in terms of the mobility and the be able to throw off platform. Kedon can do it, but maybe not to the level of the 2 guys before him. And when you look at the spread in this game, that's the one thing I was really interested in finding out. West Virginia's like a 9.5, 10-point favorite. Now I think that's bumped up to 12.5 points. And it's a good plug-in, by the way. This show is brought to you by BetOnline. So if you are looking to make a play on this game, go and put your play in on BetOnline where the game starts. But Casey, I mean, how much of a difference does this make for BYU's offense this week in particular? I mean, is it something that they've kind of known all week that could be a possibility that he could start, or is it as late as we found out?
I think BYU has known probably longer than the public. Again, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't been able to practice. And with BYU traveling out a day earlier than normal, they traveled out on Thursday this week. I think they had to figure out the guy who's in and who's out a day earlier. So I think they've probably known since, Monday or Tuesday that he probably wasn't going to be able to go. As far as your comments about Kedon in the BYU offense. I think it's probably true to a certain extent. Like, I think we've seen that BYU's offense probably needs a quarterback. It does not need to be even a true dual threat quarterback, but it
Right.
needs to be a quarterback that can at least be more of a threat with his legs and be able to extend plays. Kedon has not had a lot of help around him this year, frankly. Like, BYU's passing attack has been much better than the rushing attack. Up until the last two games, BYU's offense has struggled to even gain more than 70 or 80 yards on the ground. While they mixed up the lineup along the offensive line and things have looked better, but still, I think it's probably unfair to say that Kedon has been the problem this year. It's probably spread across a multitude of areas, but we'll see how much of a difference a more mobile quarterback will make. BYU's offense desperately needs a spark. Against Texas, in their first 7 drives, 6 of the 7 lasted only 3 plays. It doesn't matter who you're playing, or Texas. Give them credit; they're a great defense. But to be unable to get first downs that many drives in a row you're just never really in the game. And so we'll see if just having a third threat to the offense where, Jake, even if he could pick up 6 yards on a scramble, that could make a difference for BYU.
Casey, I think we're off the fairway and onto the green kind of with this, because I think we're toward what we suspect might be playing out. Yeah, there's some injury issues, but at the same time, they haven't been productive. They need a spark. I think there's parallels here to, in 2019, West Virginia had a situation in Neil Brown's first year in which we had Austin Kendall as a transfer from Oklahoma starting for us. We were sluggish offensively, especially down the stretch. We had a period in which we had 4 straight games. We hadn't scored more than 17 in a game. Well, what we did was we had a transfer in Jarrett Dagey, who came in from Bowling Green, and he was showing some flashes in practice. But at the same time, they wanted to reserve that red shirt and only allow him to play in those 4 games. Well, guess what game he played in? The 4th to the last game of the year against Texas Tech. He came in late in the game, and then he started the final 3, helping us pull 2 upsets as double-digit underdogs against Kansas State and TCU. I hope that part of history doesn't repeat itself. But you made another point in your article that I'd like you to talk about here, and I thought it was fascinating. Is this game, set, match? Are we accepting this as pure fact that this is going to happen? Because you talked about last year, the BYU Notre Dame game, Jaron Hall didn't practice. There was a lot of chatter that Jaron Hall wouldn't start. The backup was supposed to get his first start. Lo and behold, here comes Jaron Hall making the start despite reports to the contrary. How certain are we that this is going to happen and Kedon Slovis is in fact on the shelf?
I think it's much more certain this year than it was last year. And that's probably more of a factor that BYU trusts their backup, being Jake, more this year than they did last year. There was one game where Jaron Hall injured his ankle and was unable to return in a game against Stanford last year. And it was pretty clear, given BYU's hesitation to bring in the backup against Notre Dame when Jaron Hall was clearly injured. They decided to trot out a Jaron Hall who was maybe 50% over the backup. And when that backup did get an opportunity against Stanford, I believe he only attempted 1 or 2 passes. So I think from BYU's perspective last year, it was Jaron Hall or bust. Whereas this year, they truly believe that Jake Retzlaff could be a future starter for BYU in the Big 12. I would be really surprised, just based on the last even 12 hours, if Kedon Slovis plays. I think you never know, again, because of last year, especially with how BYU handles injuries. They're pretty private, but I would say it's probably greater than 95% chance at this point that Retzlaff gets a start.
Good to know.
So if Kedon doesn't play in this game or isn't dressed for this one, who would be that backup to Jake Retzlaff?
The backup, if Slovis is unable to go at all, would be Cade Fennegan. He's been in the program. This would be his 3rd year. He's originally a Boise State quarterback, transferred to BYU.
Okay.
He's more of a dual threat quarterback, where if he were to play, BYU would probably call some design quarterback runs. But I think the drop off from Jake to Cade is probably a lot bigger than the drop off from Kedon to Jake. So if that scenario arises where BYU has to play Cade Finnegan, then things have probably gone pretty wrong.
So that might impact the way they call the game if, in fact, Jake gets the start to keep him upright. But here's the last thing I would want to ask. Obviously, we want to get your thoughts on Kedon Slovis's Pitt pep rally last year. I mean, that's been top of mind for West Virginia fans for 10 months. A lot of fans have suspected, well, I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to play here knowing what he's about to step into with us waiting 10 months to face that guy who said that. But let's talk schematically here. When I watch tape on BYU, I haven't necessarily seen Kedon Slovis as a guy who hurt them offensively, but I don't know that he's a guy who's helped them a lot either. In other words, when I look at what they're trying to do from a play selection standpoint, it has worked in the past with the Jaron Halls of the world, right? But this is the square peg round hole part that Schuyler was talking about. They're still running a lot of those same concepts, and he's just not presented enough of a threat as a runner to keep the defense honest. I mean, I so often see backside 5 technique defensive ends on zone reads crashing and making a tackle for loss from the backside because on no level do they respect the run fake by Kedon Slovis. So even simply inserting Jake into that equation, let him keep 1 or 2 of those zone reads, all of a sudden that defensive end has to stay home, because what you've had to do from an offensive standpoint is to keep defenses honest, incorporate a lot more jet sweep action to keep those backside defenders honest. And I would think, again, just based on what I've seen from Jake on tape at the junior college level, now how that jumps into this, I don't know, but he's athletic enough to at least make that part of it easier. And also the last thing I'd say about Jake, he had production in 2 years at the junior college level, but correct me if I'm wrong, at 2 different places. So that speaks to the ability to parachute onto a campus, learn a system in short order, and manage and run that system. So from how advanced he might be in BYU's offense, it might speak to that as well. So what role does he have, even when he's not running the football, to help the BYU running game that has struggled so mightily? And how well does he, or how comfortable is he, I should ask, in the system, do you think, just based on what you've heard coming out of practice, because the kid hasn't played?
Yeah, it's a very good point, and I think what you're seeing on film is probably accurate. BYU's offense has been so successful in the past because the play calls have kind of worked sequentially off of each other. Play A sets up play B, which sets up play C. BYU's passing attack has been really successful in play action situations. This year, not so much, because the ground game has not been effective. Therefore, it's a lot harder to get any real action from the linebackers or the safeties when you're faking handoff, and it's not creating as many open passing lanes. Jake did play in BYU's spring game. Granted, there's a little side story that he missed most of spring camp due to a tonsil surgery, but he came back in time for the spring game, and sure enough, he did use his legs. He kept a couple read options, and going back to the point about sequential play calls within BYU's offense, if he is able to keep a read option and that keeps the defensive end honest, which sets up the run game a little bit better, and maybe that sets up the play action pass game a little bit. BYU's offense is just needing something to go right to start to be able to build off of that and have an identity. And maybe Jake being able to keep a read option. And again, maybe if it's 3rd and 2, and if he keeps a read option and gains a first down, gets 4 yards, that's an element that BYU just simply has not had this year. And that could definitely play a role in tomorrow's game. Specifically, I'm thinking in the red zone. He ran for a lot of touchdowns at the JUCO level, and it's not because he's running 50 yards. It's because he's able to use his feet when it matters.
And he can RPO.
In terms of his comfortability with the offense, I think that is an area where Aaron Roderick at BYU has been pretty successful. There's been over 4 years, I want to say, I think there's been 7 or 8 starting quarterbacks that BYU has won with. They're no stranger to playing a backup quarterback. we'll see. BYU's really confident in him being able to plug and play and run their same system, but ultimately we'll have to see when the lights come on. If he makes a mistake, if they continue to trust him and open up the playbook.
Tyler, the biggest thing I see is this kid presenting a situation where defensively, I think all year teams have kind of had an 11-10 advantage when BYU is trying to run the football because Slovis wasn't going to do much in the run game. This turns it into more of an 11-on-11 equation.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and it will be interesting to see if BYU calls read options or even design quarterback runs early in the game. On his JUCO film, Retzlaff was pretty effective, in an empty formation, doing just a quarterback draw. That's something that
he ran speed option too.
Yeah. And BYU does incorporate some speed option, and in prior years they've used quarterback draw specifically in the red zone. So we'll see if that comes back into play.
It's funny you said, Casey. I remember on one game tape I was watching, Slovis ran the speed option. And I mean, that defensive end was still 5 yards away, and Slovis said, "Nope, I'm pitching." So that was it.
Yeah. To call that an option is probably generous. I think that's just a glorified handoff, trying to create some space for the running back. But yeah, I don't think he ever had an intention of keeping that football.
Well, Casey, we appreciate you so much for carving out a little bit of your Friday to talk some football with us here. West Virginia BYU, 7 o'clock on now Fox Sports. They moved that because the World Series ended a little early as the Rangers hoisted their first ever World Series trophy. So now West Virginia will be playing on Fox instead of FS1. And a final thank you to our friends at Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton, and Fortis, for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Make sure to visit fortis.us.com. Again, you can find Casey's stuff at Cougs Daily, a part of FanNation on SI. For Jed Drenning and Casey Lundquist, I'm Schuyler Callihan. You've been watching In the Gun podcast. And as always, be an ear and tell an ear about your favorite WV football podcast. You've been In the Gun.